All right, we're back.
Such a dork.
I know. I love this so much, though.
Look how dressed up you are.
I am.
You know why you're dressed
what?
up?
I do, actually. We have a special guest, and I dressed up for them.
I know.
Only for them, not for you. So, no, I had work today, so first day with kids.
Good for you.
Yeah, it was fun. So
We should probably introduce ourselves.
yeah, so
And our
I am
podcast.
Chris Bachman.
You're just doing it wrong. Welcome to Not for Sunday
You're right.
Mornings.
I apologize. Man, it's been a long day. I've
I
been
know.
at work for 10 hours today.
Me too.
All right. Welcome to Not for Sunday Mornings, our podcast here at Lincoln Way Christian Church. I am Chris Bachman, and I am joined today by...
Steve Baker.
And we're joined together today by a special guest.
Yes. My boy.
Would you like to introduce yourself?
Daniel Hazel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's
all
go.
That's actually why I dressed up. 'Cause Daniel was there. I wanted to impress him. I wanted to show this was a professional podcast.
So
Big D in the house. Let's go. My boy.
So
Awesome.
Daniel's actually here because he preached our sermon on Sunday,
Yes,
which
he
was
did.
our week 4 sermon, which was on the 144,000.
It was actually week 5.
Was it week 5?
I hope so, because I'm doing week 6.
My notes said week 5.
My notes are off then by a week because I wrote week 4, so and I had week 3 the week before that. So I don't know. Oh, well. That's today's problem. So all right. Well, week 5 then.
Yeah. It was awesome.
It was good.
Yeah.
That
So
was-
what did you, we always start with what did you like?
I mean, his is good. I appreciated the idea of the tribes in there and talking about, that's how we got the 144,000 is the 12,000 from the 12 tribes of Israel, and understanding why some of them were in there and some of them weren't, for that. I had some notes on a few things, but I don't want to get them to them yet because I think I think I'm getting ahead of the curve by doing that. But I don't know. Like, it was so good. It was good. There was a lot of stuff in there. What'd you like? I'm going to go with you because we don't normally go with what you like.
I know, because I don't like anything in my sermon. So. No, I like, but my favorite part was the Elon story. I like what you talked about, how Elon said, school's done. And then you're like, not really.
We had another conversation about that last night where we were getting ready for bed, and she's like, so I'm like, I'm almost there? Like, yeah, I came back again. I think she heard the sermons. And,
Oh, okay.
and was just,
Don't tell her that I've been going to school for 40 some years
Yeah,
now. So
Yeah.
just keep making you go back.
I know. I'm.
It was cool, though. I liked it, though, because it was like a good reminder. Like, that's how Revelation is. It's like, boom, 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 like, boom.
Are we done yet? And
Boom.
yep.
Yeah, it was really wild. Like, even today, I was reading this morning. I think I told you this afternoon. It was like, I had this revelation moment for this Sunday where it was like, I was like, oh wait, I think when Jesus says, you want to follow me, you're going to lose your life. I think he really meant you're going to lose your life. Like, I'm like, wait a second, wait, did he really mean that? And I was like, whoa, it was, like I had to get it from my desk and like walk away. I was like, what the
Yeah.
heck? And so
Yeah.
I think we're going to talk a little bit about that on Sunday. But so it would remind me though of like, boom, ba-boom, ba-boom, and so I really enjoyed that. So
Thanks.
yeah, it was cool.
So, well, I mean, everyone knows that, but just for conversation's sake, this is where podcast is about leaving stuff on the floor, like stuff that we just can't talk about that is part of our message and everything on Sunday morning. And so I know there's a lot with that 144, right? And so here's where I'm going to toss out one thing for you that I found this interesting, and I don't know if it doesn't mean anything, I don't think, but it's still chapter 6 ends with the question of who can stand, and then chapter 7 begins with the statement about the 4 angels standing, and I'm sure there's nothing in there, and I don't know if you came across anything, but that was something I really did find interesting, like how that word is used in 2 different areas and talking about who and what. And I know that when we talk about who, most of the time in Revelation it's referring to Jesus, is usually the who. But it was just something kind of caught my piqued my interest a little bit on that one. So what did you leave out that you can share with everyone?
Man, this was one where I felt like I had so much to cut out, and it was really hard. So yeah, there's probably 5 things that I really wanted to go down. Worship being one of them. More about the tribes, a little bit more about. I mean, we didn't even touch on the 144,000 shows up in Revelation 7, but they also show up in Revelation 14.
Yep.
And we
Yeah.
didn't even touch on that.
Yeah.
I was too busy stealing your stuff.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. There's stuff you mentioned the 4 angels. There's stuff about the flat Earth that I was really excited to include.
Oh, you're one of those? Okay, that's good to know.
See, they're
That'll
standing-
change the direction of this
they were-
podcast really
They were
quick.
standing at the 4 corners. Obviously, it's a flat Earth. I was going down that for a little bit, but I realized I should cut that out. But just that was more about like how we read Revelation and how if we don't hold it in the right way, we can make some really crazy stuff out of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Cool.
So what do you want to kick us off with? What's your first thing? If I had my druthers, I'd pick tribes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That sounds great. Yeah.
Okay.
There's so much there. And
There's a lot there with tribes.
Yeah. It's mentioned on Sunday the absence of Dan, and I don't know what your guys' takes on it are.
Yeah.
Or anything else. Like,
You go. I got some thoughts.
Yeah.
You go. I don't want to overstep. So.
oh no, I love the idea of a conversation about it, but
Yeah.
just the fact that that Dan would not be included, that Joseph was included, which we talked about how Dan considered bringing in idolatry into
Right.
the nation of Israel, but some people say that Joseph he represents Ephraim, but Ephraim wasn't given a name because they also gave way to idols, and they also turned away from the way of God. The inclusion of Levi in there. The interesting thing about the tribes that as I was reading and studying is the tribes are listed a lot in the Bible, and they're different orders. So like reading the order doesn't necessarily probably mean much, but Levi was never included as a tribe because they were a priesthood. They
Yeah.
I got some thoughts there.
Yeah, they were supposed to live in all the tribes, and then they were accounted accordingly. But here, Levi is included. I think I want to say for the very first time and only time in the entire Bible.
No, I think you're right because
Yeah.
I think in my research never came across Levi any other spot. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, did you?
No.
Oh,
That-
okay.
that's
Okay,
not-
I'll let him talk.
what-
I'll let him talk.
Oh,
No,
what?
no. That's
I wanna
super
hear.
important. No. That's like.
Okay.
No. I don't. That's like really, really important.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. I don't want to over. No. That's super important. That's super, super important. There's a reason for that. Yeah. That's like really important.
I wonder if it's important. We should probably find that out here. in a minute.
Yeah. And I wonder what my take, if that's what's important or not. That's what I wonder. But yeah, they had this special calling to be a priesthood and
Yeah.
perform the religious ordinances, the religious.
Yeah, they're the only
identity.
ones allowed to do all the sacrificing and enter the Holy of Holies.
Yeah. There's such a barrier in worship in the Old Testament, right? There's not everyone could enter in. You had the outer courts, the inner courts.
Yep.
You had
the Holy of Holies and the presence of God in there,
Yeah.
and you only had one person on one day every year that was able to go in, and
yeah.
yeah,
So because there were so many restrictions or such an honor given to them, I think the fact that they are included as everyday, ordinary tribesmen,
Yeah.
I think that's interesting that they're included there.
I always found it interesting, if we're going to talk about the tribes a little bit, the idea that you have the 10 lost tribes of Israel, and is that after Assyria that they get wiped out? I can't remember, but to this day they still can't trace their origins back to what tribe they were from, and I don't know if I'm stealing from myself in a future message here, but the idea that that lost tribe, I think, is really important. I think, and it ties into that Levi idea of them being part of this. is that there's a blending,
Mhm.
like everybody's on that same level and
Yeah.
that same page.
No
right?
hierarchy.
There's no hierarchy, and then it's shown there too that you have your tribes that were kind of booted out because they were naughty, right? I mean, they did bad things, and so they kind of lost out on the prize almost. Okay, Steve's
Yeah.
been like chomping at the bit here. So
Let's
what do you
hear
got?
No, no.
I don't want to steal everything.
I'm not stealing anything. I'm just listening. I'm just listening.
Hey, you're making an awful lot of interesting noises.
No,
though,
I'm
too.
not used to this role. I've been
That's
drinking
true.
Red
You're
Bull.
not- you're- oh, yeah. Oh,
Today's
there you
podcast.
go.
Today's podcast is sponsored by Red Bull. get your Red Bull.
Normally it's Celsius that he's drinking, so
I got made fun of that last time.
yeah.
Yeah.
Every time I've seen it, so
Yeah.
I want to know what you think. In all honesty,
About Dan
'cause,
and
yeah,
Levi.
you're surprised. Yeah, you seem excited about either Dan or Levi. I don't care. Go.
Yeah. Well, I think it was neat that Daniel did a sermon and then they talked about Dan. That was pretty cool.
Oh, I've been trying to find this picture real quick. So in 2018, I went to the Holy Land, and there's a picture of me standing by. It's called Ancient Dan, and an arrow pointing. And there's a picture of me in my hiking gear, just standing like a dork in front of, like with the arrow pointing at me.
That is awesome.
Yeah, I couldn't find it.
And people don't know this, but you can actually. Ancient Dan is the name of your record of your
Artist,
persona,
yeah.
your
Yeah.
artist. If you go on,
Ancient Dan.
if you go on
Yeah, which is
Spotify
funny
or music, you can get Ancient Dan
to name an artist after a tribe that disobeyed God and
music. Well,
turned to idolatry.
I wasn't going to say that.
Hey, you brought it up, so
That's between you and him. So yeah. Yeah, I think you were saying a lot of stuff there about how the Levites were priests and not a tribe per se. I was reading through the Testament of Dan, which is a Jewish book outside the Bible, and they said this about Dan. They said, "For I know in the last days you, Dan, and notice this, in the last days you will defect from the Lord. You will be offended at Levi and revolt against Judah, and you will not prevail over them. An angel of the Lord guides them both, because by them Israel shall stand. To the extent that you abandon the Lord, Dan, you will live by every evil deed, committing the revolting acts of the Gentiles, chasing after wives of lawless men, and you are motivated to all wickedness by the spirits of deceit among you. For I read in the book of Enoch, the righteous, that your prince is Satan, and that all the spirits of sexual promiscuity and of arrogance devote attention to the sons of Levi and attempt to observe them closely and cause them to commit sin before the Lord. So even in the Jewish literature, Dan is portrayed as completely against Levi, and then who takes Dan's place is Levi, which I think is really neat. And so even in this Jewish document, it says, in the last days, you're going to be kicked out because you're princes of Satan. And then John is basically saying, here we are in the last days, and look what's going to happen. Yeah, it's pretty wild. And so
I'm glad you read that
Yeah.
because that made me think in Revelation 14 when the 144,000 come back in, especially if they're contrasting that with Dan. There's this idea, and again, not to necessarily take it literally, but that 144,000 who have been redeemed by the earth in verse 4, these are the ones who have not defiled with women.
yeah.
So I'm wondering, is there a nice little connection in there?
Yeah,
with
maybe that's interesting. Yeah. So, but I got a little bit more. So if we go to Exodus 19:6, he says, "You shall be to me a kingdom of priests and a holy nation." Right. So we're going to build on this. And in Revelation 5:9-10, he says, "Every tribe, every nation, people for every tribe and language and people and nation, and you have made them a kingdom and priests to our God, and they shall reign on the earth." Right. So in other words, one day when the people of the Levites and their duties are going to be unnecessary, you're not going to need a mediator between God and man anymore, because you're going to be a whole kingdom of priests, and so you're going to be able to come to God as yourself. And what John is saying is that the church has fulfilled that, and this is the picture of Israel, right? So the church is here, and that the complete number of people of God, in which Dan has been taken out, Levi has been inserted, and Levi is part of the tribe. They're not needed as mediators anymore, because there's no need for a mediator, because Jesus is the one, right? And I did Chris led a class through Hebrews, and Hebrews talks a lot about Jesus
that, yep.
is our mediator, right? We don't need the tribe of Levi anymore. We don't need the Levites. Now they can become a tribe because we are kingdom of priests. And so he's saying something very profound about ethnic Israel, right? He's saying that the church is the fulfillment of the people of God, of the Old Testament that they were trying to create. The church is fulfillment because Jesus is the true Israel, right? Matthew, the whole Gospel of Matthew is pointing at this, that he's the fulfilled the law and the prophets, right? Matthew 5:17.
Mhm.
What you want to look that up, or you memorize it?
Yeah, I have. Oh yeah, let me just pull that right up
You
here.
didn't memorize it?
I don't have it memorized.
Come on, man, I'm on a roll.
You are 5:17.
Come on. That's a good one.
What's the verse?
Matthew 5:17.
Oh, Matthew 5.
Don't you know I've come
Yeah,
to fulfill?
probably have it memorized, but it's not the time.
I mean, I've
Don't
seen
assume
it.
that I've come to destroy the law or the prophets. I did not come to destroy, but to fulfill.
Yeah. Okay, so why did he pick 12 disciples? You think because there's only 12
12
people?
tribes.
Only 12 idiots that wanted to follow
Yeah.
him? No, yeah. Because because in him is a true Israel, and that right. So 12 wasn't by an accident, right? He was creating a kingdom of priests. So Jesus is the fulfillment of the Old Testament, and therefore his descendants could officially be called Israel. Not a new Israel that replaces ethnic Israel, but Israel as fulfillment of the Old Testament. Ethnic Israel had one purpose, to bring about the Messiah, and they did that. But the Messiah's purpose is to bring about a nation that has been transformed as a kingdom of priests, and that is why the church is here. And so then you have in Revelation chapter 7, which Daniel preached about, John hammering this point that the 144,000 are here, right? And so he says they're sealed. And what are they sealed from? And we'll talk about that, I'm sure. But that's, I think, the beauty of that. Like, that's what the beauty of that, And I mean, then they can kind of have some fun, like with is Judas Dan or something, but like the one that, but I don't go there. But like,
Okay, so that blew me away. Like, I'll be honest,
awesome.
I've never even thought about that. The 12 disciples having that.
why did he pick 12?
I never thought about it.
Yeah.
I honestly, like, it's never crossed my mind what made 12 the magical number. But now that you've said it,
Well, then,
like,
then to go on another level, when he goes on the Mount of Transfiguration, who does he meet?
Moses and Elijah.
Yeah, and law and prophets. Right? Moses,
you're right. Yeah.
Elijah, law
Man,
and
you put in
prophets.
way more time on this one than I did.
And that's all I do all day is just sit here and look out a window.
Staring at the walls.
No, they're wild, right?
No,
Jesus is
that's
Jesus.
wild. Like, honestly, I am stunned that I've never thought about
Yeah,
it.
no, it's
That's
wild,
amazing.
it's wild. Yeah, and so I don't, yeah, it's wild, yeah.
It's just something you take for granted in terms of that, right? I don't know.
That's
I always just
that's
have.
where I think, and that's also where I think though we're
No,
we get
it's
in trouble.
logical. It's great.
No, but that's where I think we get in trouble I'm probably getting in trouble with this, where we have an unhealthy, as Americans have an unhealthy respect towards Israel as a nation, and we think, well, those are God's holy people, and so we have to protect the nation of Israel, right? And we have to, so we. I'll probably get in trouble for this.
Well-
but here's the thing, though, is that no, that's a geography. It's
a geography thing, yeah.
And those people, that's a mission field,
Mm-hmm.
right? But to think that those people are going to get into heaven because they were
just because they're born.
that's not at
Jewish.
all.
Yeah.
Not at all.
And this is not the first time you said
Right.
because you had a whole sermon where, and there was a real beauty in that last sermon that you preached on this in terms of like, there is no difference between Jew and Gentile under Christ, right? Like Jew and Gentile outside of Christ, different story. But if you are a Jewish believer, if you are a Gentile believer, there's no difference between the two.
Right. And so then, but then that's where we get in trouble, though, when you'll see like Christians, especially in the States, we got to protect Israel, and because for some, because we misunderstand Revelation or we misunderstand the Bible, and it's like,
Right, and that goes to what you and I had talked about prior to the sermon. That you that it was an insight that I had that I think you probably came across as well. But the idea of when John's in this revelation, there's that part that he hears, right? So he hears the number of those who were sealed, right? And then that's followed directly by him, and then verse 9 of chapter 7, verse 9, where it says, "After this I looked, and there was a vast multitude from every nation, tribe, people, language, which no one could number, standing before the throne of the Lamb." And so what did he hear? He heard the tribes of Israel, right? But what did he see? He saw the multitude, which is now not just the Israelites, right? It's not just those that accepted Christ that were Jewish in heritage, but those Gentiles who were part of that, because it was every nation, every tribe, every people, every language at that point. And I know you like hit on talking about multitude, because what'd you say was like their generalization of 1,000?
1,000, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I would push back on that. I would say it's in the millions, if not more, because again, Steve and I's premise on this whole podcast, and I think through this whole sermon series, has been we are in end times, right? From the time that Christ ascended to today, and they're still going to happen, right? So think of all the people who've come to Christ during that time,
yeah,
right?
Yeah, I think the 1,000 was the symbolism.
Yeah.
Sure.
For the 144, the complete people of God.
That's
but
good.
The yeah.
I like when you said that too. The complete people of
Yep.
God. That's awesome.
Yeah,
That was awesome.
but not necessarily like he counted 1,000.
A real
No,
number.
yeah,
absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is people do though. There's there's a
Yeah.
faith. There's a whole faith movement that's a real number, and it's once that number has been hit.
Yeah.
It's
And
like,
you touched on that too a little bit. You danced
Yeah.
around it a little
Dance,
bit.
Definitely
Yeah.
dance around
Yeah.
is the way to word it. But,
yeah.
yeah, there's so much beauty to it.
Let's talk about worship because you were going to bring up worship and we didn't get to.
And we didn't hear.
sure.
I didn't hear anything on worship.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you weren't listening.
No,
Yeah.
that is not true.
Yeah, well, so talked about it a little bit. The definition, the understanding that worship, an act of worship, is something that reveals your ultimate love, your ultimate concern. We can, I think, in the Western church, we simplify it so much that worship is music, anything else is something else. But worship, we were created to be beings of worship. We were created to worship. It's not are you worshiping, it's what are you worshiping. And when you look at it that way and see worship as whatever reveals your ultimate love, then it's easy. You take an inventory of what you care about the most. You know, the liturgies of our everyday life. You were surrounded by it, like. But the mall has its own form of procedures, right? Like everywhere. That's probably dating me. There's no more malls around, but
And you're the youngest one at this table, so
don't use malls. But I think in Revelation, there's in all of the Bible, the undertones of worship and what true worship is. It always comes back to that idea of what we care about the most. And seeing the mission of Dan and even the inclusion of Levi, who were leaders of worship for the Jewish tradition. There's just so much there when we see worship, not just music, and they go into worship just after chapter 7, verse 9, where we stopped on Sunday. Picking up at 11, all the angels were standing around the throne and around the elders and the four living creatures, and they fell down their faces before the throne and worshiped God, saying, Amen, praise and glory and wisdom and thanks and honor and power and strength be to our God forever and ever. Amen. So we're surrounded by worship, and what we see is this realizing that these words were written for the original audience. There's things that we take away and understand and give us insight into the end times and into what we're experiencing. But what would the people have heard? They would have seen that throne room worship, setting their priorities, not getting lost in the weeds of the things that are going around them, but focusing on worship.
Wow, that's good stuff. That's good stuff. Man. Yeah. Wow.
On that too, if I can.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
don't want to keep on
keep
talking,
going.
but,
Come on, man.
in verse 9, we read it on Sunday, but we just kind of skimmed over the end of part. They were wearing white robes and were holding palm branches in their hands, and it calls back to Jesus' triumphant entry, right? And he's not riding a horse; he's riding a donkey.
right.
And the speaking for the original audience, the second Jewish rebellion, whatever you want to call it, around the time where Jesus was coming into to Jerusalem, palm branches were their symbol of revolt, their symbol of revolution, their symbol of rebellion. And what we see during the Holy Week, when Jesus is coming in riding on a donkey, they're waving those palm branches, Hosanna, save now, save us, save now. And what we see in that passage is that they misunderstood what Jesus was doing in their midst. And here we see the including, and they're holding palm branches. Such a simple thing to include.
That's awesome.
But tying us back to that Jesus' ministry here on earth, tying us back into heaven, tying us back into worship, and who is our ultimate love.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. Man, that's good stuff. That's good stuff. Yeah. Man. Whew. That's awesome.
Yeah.
What else we got? There's one more. I think you said there was another thing, right? Or was that?
You had three things. We said tribes, we said
yeah.
worship, and what was your third thing?
Oh, we're talking about flat Earth a little bit, but no,
And that's it for today's podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I mean, there's a lot that there's things with like the worldly power, and I think I spoke a little bit about it, but like the original audience, they're facing persecution, and reading Revelation for them would have been an encouragement to them, because God does not forsake them. He does not forget them, even though they're in the midst of the chaos and the oppression and the persecution. Some of the beauty that when we read it in context is that they read this and they said, we can be triumphant. God has not abandoned his people. We're not forgotten.
Yeah.
Even though things are tough, even though this is not what I would have
Yeah.
wanted, his ultimate plan, his ultimate rescue, his ultimate purposes still remain. I don't know. There's just so much beauty, and then you can dig into the worldly power and God's power and those cosmic clashes. But
I think that's what's beautiful is you see he is in control throughout this entire book. He is in control. Who's the one who's sending who's sending each
Yeah.
of these plagues? Who's sending each of the riders? Who's sending each of the angels and the bowls and the seals? Who's the one who's releasing them? God's in control.
There
Right?
it
He is in control, and it's a reminder. It's not the Rome. It's not the nation. It's God's in control, and which kind of leads that question is what are they sealed from? What are the 144,000? What are they sealed from?
Well, don't dive too deep into that one, because I think we'll talk about that in a couple weeks.
Oh, so what are they sealed from?
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm talking about it this week. So I don't care. I don't care.
well, I was gonna say real quick on what you said, not to
Yeah, no.
but
do
you
your
were
thing.
saying who is in control,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I would argue for the church today, and probably for them. It's, I think we can get this idea that we are in control,
Oh, come on.
right? Maybe not necessarily for the original audience, because they were being persecuted and have much of a voice, but I think for us, what Revelation might be saying to us is like, have we convinced ourselves that we are in control and we are the ones making X, Y, or Z happen?
Well, I think
Have we-
that's the biggest problem, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you look at, and I think we've all used it from time to time in our messages, but what's the motto for New Lenox? The home of proud Americans, right? I mean, and I know you've talked in recent too about just how hard it is as rich, Americans that we don't need for most anything.
Yeah.
And when you don't have that, I mean, you go back, we did Lord's Prayer last year?
Last August, yeah.
Last August, about a year ago. And there was that, what's that whole give us our daily bread for us?
Yeah.
And it makes it harder. And so we do think we're in control. And that's why I think so many people freak out when things don't go their way and they don't know how to handle it, because they forget who's ultimately in control.
Yeah.
All right, go talk about your ceiling.
No, I'm asking what are they sealed from? I mean, what are we? What do we want to talk?
Go do it. Let's do it. We're gonna do it.
No,
Buckle up.
I'm just asking.
I'm a little salty.
Why are you salty?
Huh?
Why are you upset?
No, I'm not.
Oh, you just said you're salty.
I am a little salty.
You can
Just
say it.
Huh? Well,
Chris is gonna talk.
This is gonna be my sermon in a couple
So
weeks.
Chris is gonna talk in a
It's
couple
about
weeks.
the seal of God and the mark of the beast is my sermon.
Yeah.
So pretty much we're slowly dwindling away the seal of God and just leaving a whole message on the mark of the beast. So.
Stop. First of all, what they're sealed from is from the second death. Is that that's what you're going to talk about?
Yeah, I was.
Well, I've been talking about that for like the last 5 weeks.
It's okay because mine's Labor Day weekend, so no one will be there anyway.
Right.
So it won't make.
And
a
now we
difference.
just told everybody you're going to talk.
You,
so now no one's gonna be there.
you relegated me down to the lowest level at that point. Like, what week is no one going to show up? Labor Day weekend, we'll have Chris talk. Father's Day week, not a problem.
Come on.
No, I love it. I love.
Come
we had a
on.
good group on Father's Day, so
Oh,
that was good.
yeah.
That was
Yep.
good.
Yep.
But
Yeah.
no, you're right. They're sealed from that second death. Yeah,
Yeah,
and
because
you've been
God-
talking about that.
Yeah, because
You have
God
been.
is less concerned with our physical protection and more concerned with our spiritual protection, right? right?
And that's the important thing. And again, we forget that, man. It is so. I know. I struggle with it.
Mhm.
It is so hard to live on this planet and to live the life of a human being, and to
Easier
live
to
the
live
life
like a dog.
Well, but to
like a
live
human being. What are you talking
but to live that life as a Christian and
Yeah.
to realize that it is your spiritual that is way more important than your
100%.
physical.
Yeah.
But there are so many times like I want to say something, I'm like, I got to check myself because that's not what the spiritual side is about.
Yeah.
That's the physical side.
Yeah. Well, and I think that as you read the letter, again, if we go back to read the letters, and then you see like the churches that forgot that, right? And they fell into the, ooh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. You know, and so,
Hmm.
yeah.
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 I think on something that didn't make, and I think you're going to talk about, you said
No, do your thing.
this Sunday, but the victory in John's eyes going to Revelation 12:11. I think is that what you're speaking on?
Yeah,
Oh, it
do
doesn't
it.
matter. Just talk about it because that's what we're
We'll do
doing.
it. That's my
apparently.
favorite verse.
they
Do it.
triumphed over him by the blood of the Lamb
Oh,
and
come
by
on.
the word of their testimony.
Oh,
They did not
yeah,
love
yeah.
their lives
Yes,
so
yes.
much as to shrink from death. Like,
Oh,
that's victory.
yes.
Which is not the way of the world. That is not. Yeah, you try and tell that to
Yeah.
anybody else. That is not victory.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to say.
Yeah,
is
yeah.
like,
We win by losing.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
the Jesus story.
Yep.
He won by losing.
Yeah.
are you mentioning the army?
What army?
The battle. Like when you talked a little
There
bit
is
about
no
Armageddon.
battle.
But stop. Hold on.
Some people show up and it's
When
over.
I know, but that's the thing. But
No,
but,
I'm not.
Oh, okay. So
No.
I'll just toss it out there because that was in some of my research. Was the idea that I think it's another see here thing,
Mhm.
and you see the multitudes, but they're all dead martyrs. Like they're not clad in battle attire. They're not carrying weapons. They are the martyrs, the people who have come to die for Christ, essentially.
Well, that's what Daniel just in chapter
Yeah.
7, where he says, then one of the elders at the end of he says, then one of the elders
Mhm.
addressed me, saying, "Who are these clothed in white robes, and where have they come?" And I said to him, "Sir, you know," which I think is a kind of a neat question response
like
thing.
duh.
Yeah, with John saying to him, that would be fun to investigate a little bit. And he said to me, "These are the ones coming out of the great tribulation. They have washed their robes and made them white in the blood of the Lamb." Which again,
That's beautiful there
yeah,
too.
I mean, they were cleaned by the blood of the Lamb, and yeah,
Well, and when you see Christ coming back with his robe's blood, it's his blood. It's
Yeah.
not the
Yeah.
blood. Like
Yeah.
Christians don't win because they
Yeah.
vanquish their enemies. That's not even the way of Christ. My note says not the way of Chris, which
Yeah.
I'm
It's
glad.
also not my way. I don't vanquish
the
my
way of
enemies,
Chris.
so
But yeah, that's
I
not
just scorn them.
vanquishing the enemies like with like in those terms is not the way of Christ. It's not what we see in Revelation.
no.
Well, no, and that goes to the antithesis of what the Messiah was, right? Because that's what they were looking for when Christ came. They were looking for someone. They were looking for the Lion of Judah, right? And so again, you go back into the I heard, and what did I see? I think it's in 5, right? I heard the Lion of Judah, right? And what did I see? The
Lamb.
the lamb that was slain.
Yeah.
Yep, it's pretty wild,
It is.
wild stuff. Anything else? What
Yeah.
else
What
we
else you got for us?
Oh.
Anything?
I don't know. Just
Man, you got pages there. You
Oh,
can't
pages
cheat.
and pages.
Yeah, I know. Is
I
that
can-
like 15 pages?
came prepared. Yeah. No, not 15.
Keep reading. No. So, any final thoughts, conclusions, things that you felt that you didn't leave us with on Sunday that you can leave us with today?
Was it fun doing this, or was it not fun?
Yeah, it was really fun. It was
Challenging, different.
challenging. Yeah, I was telling someone in the sports ministry that like we were talking about it yesterday, and like every time someone preaches, it's important work, it's sacred work, there's a weight to it, but this one was like times 10 just because of
Yeah.
how many assumptions are already about the text and deeply believed convictions and like everything I wrote, I was like, well, I'm sure someone will disagree with this. Like,
And I think that every time I go up.
yeah,
so.
I feel that regularly, but like with this, it was really challenging, but really, I enjoyed it a lot, and I'm sure I'll look back and be like, I wish I did this, I wish I had done that, I wish I hadn't said this, I wish I said it in this way, but it was a lot of fun, and
Yeah, inside baseball, I always have that. Like why did I leave that out?
Yeah.
Like, I could have talked.
I always say that about you. I'm like, why did he leave that out? Or
Well,
why-
you say why didn't he? Because I know that I could talk forever.
Oh, that's
but-
true. That is true. That is true.
So it's a big move for me to cut something out, which is why I love this podcast.
Yeah.
So,
It gives us space. That's
it
awesome.
gives us space to dissect everything.
Yeah. Well, you did awesome. You were great. at
Yeah,
something.
I like it. I always
I
like
do
when you get
kinda-
up
yeah.
there and preach. So.
Me too. Lots of feedback. We said a lot of positive things.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So questions. If anybody has questions, you can
We got
text
the button.
Chris at
And do not
815.
text me. Stop. giving out my- I had to give out my number to my employees today, and that was like,
Wow. He has employees. Fancy dancy.
Well, not my employees, but
Hey, we did get a comment though on Facebook. Yes, this is from Pam Buzzard. She said, "Really like the podcast. I admit I don't understand a lot about Revelation, and even some other chapters in the Bible. So I liked how you pulled the other chapters to relate the message. I guess as a mother, I am also so glad that God really wants all to come to Him. So many loved ones that I know He hears our hearts cry out to Him in prayer. That in time time will not run out for them. I'm sure that's everyone's prayer. You both did a great job. Thanks." So thank you,
that's
Pam,
nice.
for your
Yeah,
comment.
thanks,
Oh.
Pam.
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
Pam's the best. That's awesome.
Yeah, so you can leave comments.
Wherever, I guess.
Somewhere we'll
yeah.
find them.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah.
But you can also click the button for a question and
Yeah,
We'll get
we
that.
like questions, and I know there are questions out there
Yeah, and
because
you
I
know-
still have questions.
and did you know that? You don't know this. I think you know that we that this week after today's podcast we will be over 200 downloads. I know.
Wow.
Yeah, over 200 downloads
See,
on
I
our
told you that people would like this.
on our. Well, I mean, I've been downloading it.
Oh,
5
you've been
times.
doing it multiple times.
5 times
Well,
a day.
I've only
So-
told my parents and my grandparents and anyone I know, like, hey, just click download really quick.
I hired some guy in India and he just keeps downloading it. So it's probably. Like
Oh, you
3
got a server farm going. I got it.
so,
Okay.
yeah. So this week, coming up this week,
This is you.
I get to talk.
You do.
Back at it.
So you're on characters.
So yeah, we're gonna do a little bit this week. We're gonna talk about Christmas in Revelation. So it's gonna be awesome.
I'm excited. Are you really?
Yeah, no, for real.
I'm excited.
I figured
about
I'd
that.
wreck Revelation, might as well wreck Christmas too. So it's gonna be awesome.
Those are my favorite when you
Yeah.
ruin something.
It's gonna be a lot of fun. No, it's really gonna be a lot of fun. So it's gonna be, I think, neat. We got some neat little. It's gonna be a fun Sunday, I hope. So
All right.
yeah, it's gonna be a lot of fun. So
Well, I guess thanks for joining us.
it was a blast.
Yeah, seriously, I would love for you to come on.
Yeah, all the
'Cause you can-
time.
You can roast Steve anytime that
Oh,
you
please.
want to.
Just waiting for my invitation.
You're always
You're
welcome.
always invited.
We have 3 microphones for a reason.
Oh,
Yeah.
No, that sounds great. This has been
It was
a
a
lot of
blast.
fun.
Yeah,
I'm glad you like. Yeah, I am glad you joined. This was.
it was a blast.
We always keep saying this, the best one yet so far.
Yep,
So,
I would agree.
all right. Well, thank you for your time, and we'll talk to you guys again.
All right, bye.
Bye.